The purpose of the meeting is to make sure we're getting all the questions ready for the survey. Has everybody reviewed those and looked those over? I see there are some comments. Hold on, I have the comments on. Hold on, let me get rid of that. I added some feedback this morning, Dr. Randa said. Um, I have automatic captions, so it's blocking the video, so I can't see everybody signing. So I got that turned off now. So yeah, it's very distracting. So was everybody able to read that over? I know I saw some people last minute that were typing, but did everybody get a chance to look everything over and read everything? Okay, so I just want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to read it over. I know that I have seen many wonderful questions, things that are put on there. Some people made some comments, and I can see all the different perspectives that are going into those that we could discuss. And I will, do you guys have access to that, or would you rather me share the screen? Because if I share the screen, that means it's going to mess everybody up and it'll be harder to see everybody. So which do you prefer? Okay, beautiful, beautiful, great, perfect, perfect. Okay. Um, do you guys have any concerns related with specific questions? We can go ahead and discuss those now. Kristen is raising her hand. Yes. Chrissy Davis, pull the full screen so I can sign rather than looking really small so I can see the interpreter on the full screen. I don't want to see the interpreter. I want to see Chrissy. So yeah, you can move those around. How do I do that? Ask if you can get that in grid mode. On the view up at the top there, click on the view. Perfect. Okay, great. Hold on one second. Okay, so let me ask you to go ahead and share any questions that you see on the screen that have some concern regarding this. And I want to discuss it to make sure we're all on the same page of those questions. I've seen some leading questions. We don't want to lead the community. We want to have neutral answers. So those are some things, if you don't mind looking that over, and let me know if you have any concerns. Second. Now I can see everyone. So SLS Amy, I guess I could change my name. Sorry, Awesome Com for ease of the meeting. Some concerns I have is that this discussion is about licensure. So we don't need to ask which agency is being used. We don't need to ask, have you experienced working with specific kind of interpreter? Our question needs to be focused on, for the deaf perspective, do you want qualified, or that's not the word, standards set in place for your interpreters? For the interpreting community, do you want to make sure your colleagues have a standard set in place. So I feel very, that's not a sign, very like a little bit about some of the questions might be leading to different topics, which are great. And some of the topics we still need to have. I agree. But for this meeting, this discussion, licensure, then later we can discuss why not ITP, why not, or why specific places provide not quality interpreters. Those are all great questions, but those are on the holding place. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do need ITPs. So maybe our discussion becomes, do we talk about setting up ITP or ITTP before licensure or after? But that is for licensure, my opinion, my perspective. Okay, who wants to sign goes next. I did notice why CDI was involved in licensure. CDI is an interpreter too, so they have to follow the same standards as everyone else, as the interpreters as well. So they have to follow RIDs, procedures and policy tasks, their quality assessment test, and their knowledge test, as well as hearing interpreters. One concern I did have is experience in Pennsylvania that I had is that deaf CDIs and hearing interpreters, the hearing interpreters, HIs, they had different standards. They weren't the same. Hearing interpreters were being able to write and pass. They had 2 or 3 specific number of years to practice and then take their performance test to be able to pass that and then become a permanent, have permanent licensure or provisional, I'm sorry, provisional licensure. But the deaf interpreters, the certified deaf interpreters, they, they, if they didn't pass their written, they couldn't do what the hearing interpreter did. So it was unequal. Hearing interpreters had an opportunity to go and work and make money because they had a provisional, but the CDIs did not have that opportunity. They couldn't work while they were practicing in order to take their performance. And so that's why I put my concerns in there about CDIs need to be included in licensure and the rules or whatever, the same way hearing interpreters need to be as well, because that's the experience that I had. And I have a doctorate degree, and I passed the written part, but I can work after I passed the written part, which was not fair. Same as my wife, as a DI, a DI could work, but a CDI couldn't. So, and that was a conflict for me, something that I want to make sure is more fair here. Chris is saying, I get what you're saying. This is Tennessee licensure. So we definitely need to look how we're writing the questions to be able to get people to answer what we're looking for, which we understand. That's one thing that we'll try to figure out that part is. And Megan saying, yeah, I can come too. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we still need people to identify themselves. So if you're a DI, a CDI, an interpreter, whatever, you need to take a specific set of questions for the survey. Other people, deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, take a different survey. So that's our focus right now, is figuring out who needs to answer which questions. I agree that DIs, hearing interpreters, everyone needs to be included in licensure. We will also need to define terms too. So, but for this, we're figuring out who answers which questions. So that's our categorization goal.
So it's Bobby. I want to go back to, I think, what Amy said. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to change my name. That's fine. I agree with her comment about this needs to be specifically Hold on, I didn't see what Chrissy said, I'm sorry.
Hold on, Chrissy's saying, can you see Beth? Can everyone see Beth? No, Beth, we can't see you. Can we hear Beth? No, Beth, we can't hear you.
I turn
Wait a
on.
minute, let me try Bobby again.
Okay, great.
My
Thanks.
dog gets very interested when you guys are talking. She thinks you're talking to her, so I didn't want to be distracting. And if I put her down, she'll bark. This is Daisy.
Okay, that's
Oh,
okay.
that's fine. We just want to make sure you had access to all the information, which is great. Okay, Bobby, continue, sorry. Yeah, so I wanted to go back to what Amy was saying. I agree that there are some questions that feel like they need to focus on licensure. And this past meeting, I was really concerned about some questions maybe being separated. And so that's why I'm a little about wanting to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to answer the questions. And the questions, they may not only just apply to a deaf person or to an interpreter. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying to make sure that everybody is involved in the licensure process. That's great feedback. Thank you, Kristen. Hi. So I've been, my name's Kristen, it's my sign name. I was Dr. Lisper, but I will be Kristen. Anyways, I was reading many of the comments and concerns throughout the document, and I mentioned in my feedback it was a little confusing, and I already discussed with Chrissy about it. And so I was, it was kind of all over the place, and I just wanted to say, hold on a second, let me ask for clarification first. So who is running this whole thing? Who has the power to bring this to the state for, because I don't want just a runaround, like going in a circle. That's what we've had to deal with for many years, right? People just talking out of each side of their mouth. So I just want to have the right group, the right goal, the right purpose that we're all going towards. I've worked with many interpreters all over the USA, ITPs, agencies, organizations, coordinators, all of them. And my experience through BI, RID, state licensure, what have you, and many of the questions we're talking about qualifications or experience or whatever. But right here, for me, living in two different worlds, right? So before the ADA, there was a ton of interpreters. They didn't go to college, they didn't get training, they didn't get degrees, they just interpreted. They just came in, and some of them were great interpreters, but could they pass a licensure certification, what have you. And then nowadays, where we have tons of requirements and licensures and degrees and all of the same things, but where is the follow through? Who's overseeing it? Who's making sure that everybody's following up and checking with the CPC and RID, and that their body language and facial expressions and the deaf culture awareness and all the things are there? Who will be taking that? Who is the right person to go up the chain so we're not just running around in circles? That's where my interest lies, and so that's my question to the group right now. And Chrissy said that's fine. She hasn't been here, so we can catch her up. I'm gonna need somebody to switch with me soon because I'm gonna have a really bad coughing fit. Sorry.
I can take over. Yep, go ahead. Yep, ready. I'm ready. Yep. Do I need to go back? Okay. We started this in August of last year. So the committee, we have a group of deaf and hard of hearing. We also have groups of interpreters who are coming together that are interested in licensure in Tennessee. We do not have anything right now. The goal is for EIPA not to be included in this licensure. That's a separate issue. It needs some improvement, educational licensure, of course, but it's separate. The intention of this meeting, what we've been doing thus far, is meeting in different communities, Knoxville, Nashville, etc. We've been meeting different people and getting a take on what their thoughts are, what their responses are, their thoughts on licensure in Tennessee. That's our purpose. Thus far, we've been doing that. We have also assessed what they know about certification and licensure. And we're using that to get a feel for it. This meeting that we've arrived to now, we're still in the first round of getting a feeling. We'll move on to the second round with the statewide virtual meeting. Those are those 7 questions that we've been asking as standard in all of these meetings. So for the second round, we're going to have a greater focus on the 2 groups that we've established. We want to collect more answers to the questions we've had from both groups, the deaf community and the interpreting community, so that we can get an in-depth understanding of what's going through that and how we can get to licensure. What does it look like? What is licensure? What's involved in licensure? That's where we are. We hope to get licensure, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take years to build and develop what we need to do to accomplish that. And at some point in our journey, we're going to take it to the legislature, but right now we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on talking to those 2 communities that I mentioned. What? No lobbyists. No, we don't have any lobbyists. No sponsors thus far. We don't have. And that's the discussion. We have the old draft that was worked on previously through the work group. That was brought to the state, but it was much before my time, Christy's saying. We have that old draft. We want to, collect information and compare those 2 drafts so that we can use that. We have not gotten to that point yet. It's just, we're in the first stage. This process is still in its infancy. So we'll be doing more work as meetings continue. And that's why we're recording these sessions as well, so that we can document the information that we gather. And that's where we are now. Back to your comments. They're great. So right now, with people that we have here with us this evening on the recording, who's willing to focus on the questions for the group of deaf consumers, and who's willing to focus on the questions for the interpreters? I see nodding, nobody raising hands. Interpreters, I can focus on questions for interpreters, yep. And Amy's saying, yep, I can share that duty with Megan. Okay, now what about deaf consumers? Who wants to focus on that? And Bobby raised his hand, Chris raised his hand as well. Okay, Bobby and Chris, that's great. Let's go through and take out what we don't need, some of the questions that are off topic, off point. But I also want to save, I don't mean that we'll completely delete them. We can hold those questions that aren't related to this survey right now, perhaps use that for follow-up later. There could be some misunderstandings, some misinterpretations. So tonight, I just want to validate the deletions, save them, of course, put them in a separate folder. And the same with the questions for the deaf consumers. We need to review those, take out the ones that maybe aren't appropriate for this session, and keep them. That way we can keep them clearly divided and then review them. Amy? 7 each, right? Chrissy's saying that's her number. Yeah, so we can keep that number. Keep it simple. Yes, sorry, somebody just came into my office. They had questions for me. Okay. So yeah, 7 is a good number. I want to be sure that they're direct and to the point. Okay. Okay, Kristen, Lenny, who wants to go first? Okay, so will we go through the 7 questions? Or do you prefer individuals going through it each? For that question, what we just discussed, those questions that we have started will become the survey. So are we discussing changes now or later? Chrissy's saying we're discussing that later. We'll group up and discuss those later. We'll have time at the next meeting next month. We'll have more time to focus on that. So 7 for each group sounds great. let's go through and have, it would go through and decide if we're going to be multiple choice or longer answers. Other recommendations? One concern I have, I noticed 2 or 3 questions were yes, no questions, while other questions had multiple choice options. Most of that, multiple choice answers, I feel it should be standard open-ended questions or instead of yes or no, because that's can be confusing. For more data collection is better if they're open-ended or multiple choice instead of yes or no. That's my recommendation. Okay, yep, Megan, and I'll send com again, this time with my not muted. Okay. Multiple choice and yes, no. I feel that data collection would be easier if it were yes and no. Qualitative answers, yes, are valuable for research. Yes, definitely. But for this, for data collection, I feel that yes and no would be easier to count, would be easier to categorize. And that would help us at this stage. I do think that qualitative answers are important to our journey, but not now. Getting a feel for what people understand about certification versus licensure, if they want licensure for now, I think is an important part of the process. Okay, Amy? Oh, and I saw Beth maybe too.
I think the yes, no too would leave it where it's not as open to the interpretation of whoever's looking at these results to maybe skew them. If they have a preconception about what they think it, you know what I mean? Like you could read a response and maybe interpret it different ways, where yes, no is pretty straightforward for the first part to see which direction that this committee should go.
I was gonna agree, say almost the same thing, and then use the open-ended qualitative questions for later. Use that for when we are developing and bringing it to the powers that be, you know what I mean? But I was gonna answer almost exactly the same stuff, so.
Okay, great. Lenny? To make sure that the questions are accessible by people who use ASL, if they're in person. Some people who are deaf, we all know that English is their second language, so some people are bilingual, so that would work for them. We plan to do that already. That's part of our vision. And we also need to make sure that all centers all over the state bridges have someone in the office who's available. If someone comes in and is having issues with accessibility or filling out the form, yeah, I think that's an important part of it too. Yeah, Kristen? East Tennessee does not have a building or a facility. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so far we've agreed we're going to have 7 questions for each survey. We'll have a focus on the group of interpreters and group of deaf consumers. We'll keep the yes and no questions for data collection purposes. Yes and no and multiple choice, Amy saying. Yeah, that's my follow-up question. I just wanted to be sure that I caught both of them. So yes, no, multiple choice. Yes, no, and multiple choice for some questions. What are your thoughts? Kristen is saying, okay, yep, Kristen. I don't know how to do this. I used a different system previously. I'm a researcher. And that's why I was looking, my first reaction to the questions is that it wasn't clear. it didn't flow well. It wasn't targeted. It was very vague. To yes or no, I understand data collection purposes. As I said, I'm a researcher. But also there needs to be some kind of connection to that question. Yes or no? And do you go on, explain why? For instance, that can count as supporting or not supporting an issue. You know what I mean? Chrissy says yes. Okay, great. So what we need to have is yes, no with a reason. So that people can see, oh, there are people who agree with me, this number, and there are people who disagree with me, that number. I don't know how you want to do that with the 7 questions. Because many deaf people in East Tennessee are confused, period, about certification and licensure. And I have a feeling that just signing that would be helpful. But I can't do that. It has to be on paper. There has to be some kind of research behind it. I support your idea in, having yes, no questions with additional data. Like for instance, using Go React. Yep, we have those, all of those. When you push record, you can select your answer or select your reasoning for your answer so that you can have people who are deaf and people who are hearing backing up their own answers so that we can collect the data. Okay, that's open to anyone else who has thoughts or comments. Okay, this is Chris. He's saying I'm a little bit behind. I'm joining late. I've only been with partnership for about a week. So I'm trying to find that work-life balance for sure. I'm behind on this. The questions on Zoom are due next week. So the second round will begin next week. That's what we've talked about. Yeah. Okay. The next week on the 11th is the statewide virtual meeting. That's Megan Potts, Eric Workman, and I going through those 7 questions that we had developed already, which will be the same concept, but just online. That's already been set. This discussion is related to the second round of meetings and also sending out the survey. We're trying to figure out which questions we need to have on the survey before we send them out. Okay, so obviously the assessment survey, anybody who gets anything, help me out. Sign. Is that automatically? You mind go back? You might go back a little bit. Okay. Okay, on the platform that I'm using, the questions are automatically, there's a signer there. And then the next response to the question, the answer is in ASL. So you can just click that answer related to that ASL response. And that's the platform that I'm using specifically to collect data. And Amy's saying, what's the name of that? I can't remember the name of the platform. I'll have to ask to get that name. Okay. And Chrissy's saying, yeah, that would be great if you could let us know about that platform. It would be awesome to have those responses available on ASL. Yeah, we can set that up. I want to focus on the question that I just asked you about yes, no. Do you agree to have the yes, no questions? and then a more elaborated response, or just keep the yes, no questions? What do you see? What do you say? Amy?
Question. I know some were talking about the box might be too much information right now. Do you think, I was just reading that while I was listening to Megan voice, but do you think that the like, what is it, the like scale, like very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, that would be better than for now, and then later go back and ask for more elaboration? What are your thoughts about that? I was just looking, I thought, oh, yes, no, both seemed good. I don't know.
I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents in. I suggest, the range, because that feeling of their reaction to the question, you can get that feeling. Is it a strong reaction? Is it, moderate, somewhat? What type of response do they have to those questions? That would give us a generalized picture. Yes, no, could mean nothing, honestly. Those are my thoughts. I think that'd be a good place to start.
That can create an easy chart to look at too. So I think in pictures, a pie chart or graph, so we can see what everybody's feelings are too, if we use that
Mhm.
instead of just yes, no. I just feel like yes, no is very like, some people are like, "Hmm," some people are like, but where are you? You know what I mean?
Mhm. Kristen, another thing I was reading related to number 5. My biggest concern with the question, do you want Tennessee interpreting licensure? Yes. We went to college, we have to prove that we have the degree, we have to prove that we have the experience. It should be the same concept for interpreters, period. I have had many interpreters who never went to school. That's okay. But I mean, you can count that same experience in the community as respect, for sure. The younger interpreters who, have gone to an ITP and all of that are different. The older interpreters never did any of that. So experience, if you could say, versus education is very different. We need to feel like the deaf community, honestly, you need to feel like a professional with a PhD level degree. 90% of interpreters here can't lip read. They have to use lip reading to understand what I'm saying. And I look like a kid. That's where I would like to see interpreters have this documentation. Interpreters have to go to continuing education workshops and figure out what the philosophy is based on. I'm struggling in this state. I'm sorry to say that, but I want licensure. So I agree. Can I switch with someone, please? I need some water.
Okay, great. I forget up here. So I was writing notes. I tried to, maybe I printed it before, I don't know, but I have this right now. But someone mentioned about Memphis, something about their maybe Mississippi or Arkansas, something like that. Their registry, which I feel like there's 2 agency or something that mentioned, oh, we just moved on. Yes, something was mentioned about a registry. But anyways, in my personal opinion, how we run and maintain a licensure in that process, or a registry, which is the list of names, that is where qualifications come in, overseeing that. and how we respond if someone is not meeting those standards. So that's where we need to step in and up that issue. Registry or licensure, wherever that may fall, can be good or bad, but it just depends on the design and how it is ran and how it is handled. So it is really important to not only just document, we have names here, but also how are people going to get involved and respond and have some kind of enforcement if someone is not meeting those standards. And so that is where I see a need that needs to be fixed for that kind of situation, in my opinion. Christy says, yes, thank you for sharing that opinion. I remember, we're focusing on the questions, but yes, so we feel like that scale is probably going to be the best and we'll stick with that. So if everyone is okay with that, yes, good, yep. Okay. So that's what we're going to work on. That's what our goals are from here on out. Between the deaf community and hearing and deaf interpreters, we have separate entities who are going to work on both, and we'll do it on a scale. And then, like you said, it'll be easier to review that way. There won't be anything off topic or nothing will be misconstrued. We're going to keep it at this level. Good? Everybody's good with that? Yes. Just another idea to throw out there if feeling uneasy about yes or no. If this is like most like, less like, don't like, what have you, we just, this and above is counted as a yes, this and below is counted as a no. Just something to throw out there. Just for data collection. Chrissy said, yeah, that's really important. This is just for data collection. An important thing that I want to talk about now is just getting those questions, getting the 7 questions for each group on a scale as their answer. And then our next month's meeting, we can make sure to have this all ready, cleaned up, ready for springtime to have the survey sent out. Good. Plenty. So is this going to be statewide? Yes, statewide, or tomorrow's, or whenever that is, next week is a statewide meeting. Yes, and the first round, this is going off first round. Yeah, Megan and I were handling all that. Yes, yeah, yes. Kristen. Will we have access to both the list of both sets of questions? Yeah, I think so. Just, you can add them to this, or just do what you need to do to make sure it's clearly labeled that, this is deaf, this is interpreters. Great. Okay, good. Are we good? So you guys can take the rest of the night, get some family time in. So I think we're good. So, okay, I will send you guys the schedule for the February meeting. Do you have any preferences before I make a decision on when the next meeting will be? Not on Wednesdays. Not on Wednesdays, Megan said. Not on Wednesdays. Okay, that's fine. Anybody else? After 3 is fine. After 3, Monday, Wednesday after 3. I can't do Tuesdays or Thursdays because I have class until after 7. So, okay, so Fridays, Monday or Friday. Monday is best for me. Monday seems to be good for everybody. What time typically is it? Lenny wants to know. Monday. Does anybody have any preferences in the first or second week? Anybody? First come, first. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Maybe some of you are looking at your phone. Kayla, do we have anything? February 5th, is that what we're looking at? February 5th, we're just asking, is that, yeah, that's fine. February 5th works. What time? I think 3:30 was good. Oh, evening. 3:30, wait, sorry. 4:30, I'm sorry, we're in Central. 4:30. Sorry, I forgot you guys wrong in Central Time. Anyways, okay, we'll put that down. Monday, February 5th at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central. Hope you guys will have 7 questions ready to go, and base that on a sliding scale. We'll look it over, make sure we're satisfied and ready to go. Kayla says, let's do it. Megan says, I have a question.
Okay, the people who volunteered for the interpreting questions, I will follow up with an email and we can Zoom. We'll meet sometime. I think there were only Amy, you and I, Kayla,
Kayla,
and Lisa.
Lisa.
Okay, sounds good. I will follow up.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then I'll email everybody else. Okay, great. All right, last chance. Anybody else got any comments, questions, concerns? Good to go? All right, guys have a good night. Thanks. We'll look forward to seeing you guys next week, Thursday.